What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Dylan Nossman here with Calf Kick Sports, and I am joined by a very special guest today, founder, CEO, president of United Fight League, as well as F3 Energy, HDR Global, and much, much more. It's fight week. Got a big card on Friday. How are we feeling, man? What's
It
going
is
on?
stressful. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's surreal. Obviously, there's a lot moving and shaking, but it's fun to be, trying to solve these problems. I'd rather have productive problems to solve rather than, nothing moving. That's a problem that nobody wants and needs. So things are moving very fast, which is problems. But luckily, we're here.
yeah, rolling with the punches. I like to hear it. So, a little bit of history. The UFL's existed as a concept for a couple years now. Obviously, UFL 1 took place February 2023. Coming up on UFL 5, you initially held bantamweight, welterweight Grand Prix tournaments. Now we're kind of moving more to a team-based format. Just talk to me a little bit about what's changed from your perspective, the UFL since conception, and kind of where we're at now with the league and promotion.
No, thank you for teeing that up because it has been kind of a evolution that people are kind of confused about because our original promotion, which was Freedom Fight Night, it
Mm-hmm.
actually was kind of a team versus team structure where we had Tito Ortiz versus Rampage Jackson, and then we had Tito Ortiz versus Ryan Bader, and then we had Ryan
Mm-hmm.
Bader versus Benson Henderson, and it was kind of the original concept of how do we have points, how do we have the camaraderie between teammates, but they were kind of teammates that were just one and done. They didn't see a future for themselves, and so we decided, let's just have a roster of fighters in our professional league that ultimately can become the ranking of future teams that we put together, that coaches like now Henry Cejudo and Frank Mir or, Rampage Jackson can pick from so that they know kind of rankings of fighters that they would have going up against each other. And that's why ultimately we started United Fight League with the Grand Prix instead of a team versus team structure. It was let's get some rankings, let's get some fighters in our pool, some people who are used to how we run our league, because we are the first promotion and combat sports league that provided full health insurance to its committed multi-fight contracts, shares in the company to those fighters, and help us build this thing, help us build this league, and it should take care of you guys, just like Frank Mir, Tito Ortiz, Rampage Jackson. If they would have had shares in UFC that they helped build, they would be living kind of different lives right now.
100%.
And I want our fighters to be able to say that they helped build this and that it took care of them. So now that we've done our Grand Prix, we've had a few of our initial champions crowned and belted. One of them actually just got stole by the UFC.
Yep.
Nikolai is doing his thing, and actually Jose Delgado is now, and Ryan Loader. We have a lot of our top talent being, graduating to the UFC, which is inevitable. It's going to happen, but I never see UFC being the competition to UFL. I look at it being kind of the UFC will be kind of always the Super Bowl of who's the best all-stars of the NBA of MMA, which is UFL. So UFL will be the NBA of MMA, where we have teams that will have, we'll have UFL champs on them as well, but it is all about the points. It is what team is going to go in and win on these point systems that we all eat together. If they all win, or let's say they all, let's say four of them lose, one, it's basically a 1 point, where if it goes to a decision and you won, you get 1 point for your team.
Mm-hmm.
But then that last fighter, for example, Hunter Azure versus Vince, that is worth 6 points because it's a 5-round fight. That if somebody gets a finish in the first round, that's 6 points. So all previous 4 events, if they went to decisions, that one fight could win it for them. And so there's so much relying on each other to get that $50,000. I love the camaraderie and the civic pride that you're representing your city. You're representing more than, it's an individual fighter's sport, but when you are depended on by your other teammates, it can become a really fun, thing that we haven't seen in the MMA industry yet.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, and you've seen, organizations like the PFL start to work with a point system, more of a season format, but this almost feels like the next evolution where it's like, okay, it's beyond just, like you said, the individual fighter and more, how can we build this as a unit, as a team, and, develop and grow. So I love hearing those things. It's some awesome stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be surreal when I say the NBA of MMA, a lot of people think that's just a catchy phrase, but give us a couple years when we have all 8 of our teams set up around the country, where all 8 teams have to fight a minimum of 4 times a year, where that is, 8 times 4 for a regular season. That's 32. So divided by 2 teams, that's 16 events a year at a minimum. And when we're broadcasting this on the big platforms and we were able to get those big partnerships, we can have all 8 teams afford to do drafts. Like they can do a draft period where they are researching fighters from other promotions, and they draft them. Or there's trade deadlines, and who's offering the biggest contracts to these fighters. It is going to be so fun building these types of intricacies that other major league sports have that MMA's never had.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that sounds like some very exciting stuff for the future. So something I've noticed about the UFL early on, managed to showcase a very global roster, despite being kind of a younger promotion and being regionally based in Arizona. I mean, you've seen guys from Eastern Europe, from England, from, all over the globe represent in the UFL. Talk to me about, what it means for you to have such a global roster and how you've been able to kind of draw those fighters into a newer league like the UFL.
I not only does it get me really excited because we will have teams in other countries and team versus team all around the globe. It's United Fight League. It's not just the United States Fight League. It's really important that we start getting these fighters to realize what we stand for and interact with us, because we do operate very differently with the fighters. But it also shows the top talent that we can get. We didn't want to be a regional show right off the bat. And sometimes, to keep the expenses down, you kind of just get local fighters that, are up and coming, but because they don't have to travel, because they don't have to stay in hotels, or maybe they aren't used to big purses, smaller regional promotions can get away with just getting local talent who sells tickets to their local communities. We knew it was going to be an expensive initial task to bring global fighters from around the country to a brand new league that we don't have our name yet. That's really going to sell a lot of tickets in person by names from other countries. But we knew that it was needed. We knew that we needed to put the money and the investment into the league to show that we have top talent, that we are not cutting corners. And it's just been a hell of a ride. And I think it was the right decision.
100%. Obviously, the beautiful thing about MMA is it is a global sport. You can find fighters in every culture and country. So, making sure to draw on that as opposed to just the regional talent, like you mentioned, is really a worthwhile endeavor, in my opinion. So this specific event, we kind of touched on it a little bit. We're going team versus team, Vegas versus Phoenix. We got Henry Cejudo on one side with a lot of guys from his gym at Fight Ready going up against Frank Mir with some guys from Vegas. Not only is it city versus city, but there's also $50,000 in the line to be split amongst the winning team. Is this going to be, obviously we've talked to the team, but is this kind of prize money in this format going to be the format for the UFL moving forward? Is this kind of laying the groundwork for this?
For the time being, absolutely. Where every team, it's always going to be a 5 versus 5 main card. And those are the 5 teammates that will be fighting for the $50,000 prize. But as we build as a league and we have more rules and more strategies that can be brought in, like do coaches have ability to say what fighters fight at certain different times of the night? Because if you have somebody that's really good at finishing fights, you might want him to be saved to the last fight so that know how the other fighters, like there's a lot of things that we will build out as the league matures and as the money comes in. As we have a broadcast deal with some big networks, we can afford providing more money to team. We call them franchises. It's basically like the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Heat, the Phoenix Energy, whatever we're going to call them. They will be able to give them a league stipend to pay for coaches, to pay for obviously the health insurance that we're going to always keep going. But bigger bonuses, bigger
Mhm.
contracts to the fighters, and so right now the model is to have the 5 fighters. All they get their individual purses, they
Yeah,
they
of
get they
course.
get paid pretty well, but the bonus that the team gets to fight for, the $50,000 is kind of the easy model currently, but the goal is obviously to make that way bigger.
Absolutely, keep growing it. So a little bit more detail about this card on Friday. Obviously, got some very, very exciting fighters, ex UFC talent, up and coming prospects. Obviously, I on the card circled Shaman Moraes, ex UFC and PFL fighter, outstanding finisher. Marcus Nash, another great local prospect, up and coming. Evgeny Shinkarevsky as well, super tremendous international prospects. Who do you have circled in this card as kind of, the most exciting fights and or fighters, and what's, to sell the card? Who are you, highlighting on your fight card?
I mean, they are all. What I love is I have no idea who's going to win on any of them.
100%.
It's the fight game. It's always, you can't rule anybody out. But this one specifically, it the one I'm really excited about is the championship. Obviously, Hunter Zur defending his UFL belt for the first time, and the first time a champ is on a card. But they also both just line up so well together that I would say that's the one I'm circling, which is kind of a cop out because it is our championship bout,
Of course.
our main card. But I mean, from Nash, his excitement, but TJ taking a 3-day fight for Shimon.
We should actually bring that up. Unfortunately, Kanan Kawhi out of his fight with Shaman, but stepping in, UFC veteran, all action fighter TJ Downtown Brown stepping in against Shaman Moraes, which personally that is about as good as it gets, outside the UFC, if you ask me. So, for anybody who needed another reason to watch at home, that is, I'd say, your reason right there.
Dang it! Literally, as we name each fight, I could circle that one and just say
100%.
this one I am excited about. So, it was such a bummer because Kanan has been, he's a UFL vet. He fought in our Grand
100%.
Prix. He was going to fight for us. So to get him back in our cage was like such a awesome blessing for representing Vegas. He just fits so perfectly in our mission right now. For him to get injured last minute, and then we also so last minute that we're like, is Shaman going to have an opponent? Because he's Arizona through and through. Henry handpicked Shaman to be on his team. For TJ to accept this fight on a 3-day notice, it puts a lot of love in his corner that it's like, I would hate for him. I don't want anybody to lose, but for somebody who's willing just to step in no matter what is like, I have a lot of respect and appreciation for them.
Yeah. Well, I think the good news for both those guys is they just want to get in there and brawl. I'm sure they're not thinking about the result. They just want to put on a show. So I just can't wait to see it go down, that one in particular. But so, you've talked a lot about the health insurance, the, big plans you have for the fighters, larger bonuses. 5-10 years from now, what do you really want UFL and your impact on the sport of MMA to be?
Thank you. I want to, no matter how things play out, be looked at as a promotion or even as a president of the company, as somebody who left the sport better, whether it was elevating everybody else, like say to offer full health insurance to everybody, to find a more of a inclusive, I don't want to say union type model, but where all the fighters kind of collectively benefit from the success of the league.
Everybody has a voice,
Everybody has a voice.
Yeah.
Everybody has a seat at the table. Everybody eats together when the league makes its, earnings. That's what I would love to be remembered by. But in my perfect world, I would love for United Fight League to be the NBA of MMA, where it is on, weekly. There's events happening, whether it's Florida versus California or Texas versus Oregon or Phoenix versus Vegas, because we'll have, at that time, 16 franchises under the United Fight League that all have to fight 4 times a year at minimum for their regular season. And then when it goes postseason, the top 6 to 8 teams of that season go into a bracket for the championship of that season. There could be weekly events that TNT or ABC, NBC, whoever else, like we want to be the NBA of MMA, and it's just it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I think you've got all the groundwork and all the drive behind it. So I'm excited for the future. All right,
Thank
last but not least, any shout outs, sponsors for the event, anything like that. And if you had to sell the card in 1 minute or less to somebody random, you have to watch this Friday. Give me your pitch.
I think the biggest sales pitch would be, fans, audiences, fighters have been begging for some options, some solutions to some of the frustrations in this mixed martial arts world and the sport. Fighter pay, fighter bonuses, fighter treatment, health insurance, all these different things. United Fight League is doing it. It is trying to solve those issues, and all we need is the audience to give it a chance. I get that we're not, the UFC yet, but we just need the audience to. It's for free on Rumble. The more eyes we have, the more support we have. Not money. We're not asking for your money. We're asking for your attention and your support. And we're going to change this sport together. And all we need is eyes.
100%. I love it. Well, everybody make sure tune in 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Rumble, UFL 5 this Friday. Phoenix versus Vegas. Got a hell of a card waiting. And Harrison, thanks so much for joining us today. And yeah, can't wait to see what's next for the UFL and you.
You're the man.
Awesome. Appreciate it.